And which was the least effective?
Oh, and the lab result?
Yeah.
The pump stuff?
Yeah,
'cause
pump-
we used the hand and I was really surprised.
There's actually sometimes there was more bacteria after you wash your hands with the bar soap. Yeah, that was very interesting. Okay, any questions on that one? All right, so the next one was the epidemiology lab, and that was 39. And there's a lot of terms in this lab that I would know. The difference between communicable and non-communicable diseases. Anybody know?
Communicable is like when you get it from another person?
Yeah,
Like by
from one
direct
host,
contact?
to another. And non-communicable is, it can't be transmitted, so it's, yeah, it's different. I'm trying to think of an example of a non-communicable disease, like Giardia would be one.
So is that the one from the environment?
Yeah, yeah, it's like, yeah, something like food poisoning where you can't, that's not.
Give it to someone
Yeah,
else.
it's not contagious, basically. Okay, and the difference between endemic diseases and epidemic disease? Did you guys do your epidemiology chapter? Okay, so this is a review. What's the difference between endemic and epidemic? Endemic or epidemic? I don't know, I remember it by endemic is kind of like in, so it's already in the population. It's like a cold or something like that.
Is that like the valley fever and? or-
Like a cold or a flu,
Okay.
just, I don't know, just normal stuff that's always around. Where an epidemic is like a new thing that comes in really fast and, or a short period of time. And it gets a lot of people in a short period of time. And the index case, do you know the definition of what an index case is? Because that's what we were trying to find out in the second follow-up lab, was the index case.
With the hand?
Yeah. Does anybody
So where it
remember?
started from?
Yeah, it's the first person that got it. Okay, and definitely know the difference between direct contact, vectors, fomites, yeah. Yep. And, okay, do you guys remember how we were able to identify the index case in the lab?
The one that showed up the most, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was the one, yeah, most people got the disease from, or the bacteria from. Showed up the most at the end. And do you remember how you could tell the difference between the assigned organism and a contaminant? In the lab? I know it's a while ago, but the bacteria that we used was red. It's bright red, so.
Mm.
Definitely know what an epidemiologist does and how they can use the epidemic curve in preventing the spread of disease. You guys have any questions about that lab? It's pretty straightforward. Honestly, I think all these labs are easier than the first half. In the first half of the class. Okay, so the next one is Lab 33, fungi, yeast, and molds. And can anyone tell me the difference between yeast and molds? They're both fungus, but what's the difference? There's a couple differences.
yeast are unicellular, cellular, and molds are multicellular.
Mm-hmm. And then are yeast filamentous? No. Are molds filamentous? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And
It's a look.
I know. And what's the difference between how yeasts reproduce and molds reproduce?
Budding and spores.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I would know that yeasts also sometimes have pseudohyphae, which is when it starts budding but it doesn't completely come off. So, yeah. And okay, this is also the one that we had the bottle with the fruit in it and then the balloon on top. Do you remember what the balloon was for?
For like CO2.
What's that?
Or gases that are let out from the
From the fermentation, yeah. Yeah, so if there was yeast in what we put in there, then the yeast would feed off of the broth, and it would,
Go through
yeah, it would
fermentation.
release gas, and that's what the balloon was for. And then on this page, well, in my lab manual 252, but I think you guys have a newer one. It talks about all the different, like, how to identify molds. And I think Grant told us that we don't need to know, like, all the different Oomycota and Zygomycota. But I would definitely know, like, what a saprophyte does. Do you guys remember what a saprophyte is?
I looked at it.
Oh, so you know the answer.
Yeah.
Right, so you can tell us.
It just feeds off of dead things.
Yeah, dead organic matter. Yes. Okay, and then also we use Saboret agar. Do you remember what that was used for? Because this lab was about fungus, so remember what was special about that agar? I don't think you need to know the specifics, but just that we were trying to grow fungus, so it has a low pH, so it inhibits bacterial growth, but promotes fungal growth. And then it also has simple nutrients, just used to culture fungi. So, yeah, definitely read through like the procedure and try to remember what you did in this lab. Okay, let's see. Any questions on this one? Okay. Lab 35. Okay. So this one was about protozoa. And you definitely need to know the different types that it talks about in the background here. So it talks about Rhizopoda, Euglenozoa, Ciliophora, and Archaezoa, and Apicomplexa. So, and I think you guys have talked about these, a few different kinds of these in lecture too. So, should be kind of a review. Again, I had to find those in the lab terms too, so if you go over that, you should be good. Does anybody know what phylum amoebas go under? They're in the Rhizopoda phylum. Those consist of protozoa that move using pseudopods. Do you remember the three different ones we looked at under the microscope? Or tried to look at? I would go to the results and review this one, because he might ask the difference between amoeba or euglena and the paramecium. Remember, the amoeba is just incredibly slow because it just barely moves with its pseudopods. And then euglena had one little flagellum, so it was kind of faster, but not as fast as the paramecium, because that one had cilia all around it. Yeah, so definitely read through the background there and review all the different types of protozoa, for sure. And review the different speeds of the amoeba, euglena, and paramecium. Do you guys have any questions on this lab and what we did? Okay, and the last one was the lab video that we watched, which was I found it really interesting. Okay, do you guys remember what the ages of the most of the victims of the influenza outbreak?
21 something. They're in their
29.
prime.
Yeah, they're in the prime of their life, which was, made it a lot different than the normal flu, which usually got little kids or older people. And what were some of the major factors in the rapid spread of the disease?
War, the transport of troops and the
Right.
gathering of people for support, like
Exactly.
parades and.
Yeah. Yeah, people were more focused on the war than they were on the epidemic that was happening, so they kind of just didn't take proper precautions.
Yeah.
And what was the actual cause of death from the influenza?
Was it pneumonia?
Well, you did get pneumonia, but I think what he wanted something more
Traumatic.
specific.
Fluid. They fill up.
Yeah, it was actually
Suffocation.
drowning. Because their lungs would fill up with fluid, and they would actually drown.
So all of that, but just drowning.
Yeah, I think drowning was the main cause. I think they got pneumonia, but then they died from drowning
Yeah.
in their own fluids. Yeah, it does not sound pleasant at all. Okay, do you guys have any questions over the labs that we went over? I feel like these ones are a lot less complicated than the first half, because those ones we were talking about, the gram staining and acid fast staining and the
So it'll just be
fermentation.
the stuff in these last couple.
Yeah,
labs.
it's not from the whole semester.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
Is our final for the class? Is it gonna have stuff from the labs on it, or
No,
just?
no,
Oh, that's
just
nice.
lecture. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Did you say that, back to the disc diffusion and Kirby Bauer, did you guys determine that it was the same?
I
know
reading
you
through-
read it, but I
yeah,
just was-
reading through the lab, I honestly can't tell. So
Do you want me
Okay.
to look it up online?
yeah, I looked it up online too, and it just
It
kind of
didn't
looked.
really say?
It didn't really say, but maybe you can find
I
a
didn't read
better
my
site.
junk.
I just really quickly looked it up, and I was like, it looks like the same thing. So okay. So do you guys want to go over the practice lab really?
I think it's the
practice
same
class?
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Because it says, well, I don't know, it's not saying like this is the same thing, but it says
Yeah.
Kirby-Bauer antibiotic testing, and then in parentheses it says KB testing or disc diffusion antibiotic sensitivity testing. So I think it must be the same thing.
yeah. I think they're similar.
Yeah.